Katie, how important is an agent's financial well-being so that they can put the actual home buyer ahead of their own commission check?
So that is super interesting. I did not know you would go that direction, but the idea is that you need to find an agent that is financially stable, meaning they do enough business where they can pay their bills, not that they're like, I have got to get this closing, otherwise I can't pay my mortgage. Like any agent who is broke is going to try and get you to buy anything that they can. And there are a lot of broke agents in this industry.
Do you feel that most home buyers do a good job of vetting their agents?
That is a setup question because we know they don't. We all know that nobody does a good job of finding their buyer's agents.
This episode is brought to you by SachsRealty.education, where you can find my Todd Simple home buying course that teaches home buyers how to save money and avoid costly mistakes when buying a house. Katie Spaniak, fellow YouTube creator and top producing realtor with eXp Realty, it's an absolute honor to have you on the Sachs Realty podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Katie, you've sold almost $200 million in real estate in just the last 5 years alone, closing about 200 home sales. I mean, that's impressive. Obviously, you're full-time and you're a professional agent with a legitimate business.
Right. Yes, that is true.
Well, I mean, that's important to note because most real estate agents, I would say, don't have legitimate businesses. I mean, they just kind of do it a little bit here, a little bit there. You're like, you're in it.
I am. And I would agree with you that the barrier to entry is very low in this industry. So I am a big proponent of working with agents who are very, very experienced and full-time, which is important.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, today I want to talk to help home buyers save money when buying a house. I want you to give them a few tips and trade secrets that listing agents and home sellers would prefer that home buyers didn't know. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
All right. Well, good. So, and home sellers, you may want to listen as well. You may learn a few tips on how to get your house ready for the market. Now, Katie, I've done my research, obviously, on you, and I have found that over this at least 5-year period that you have sold more listings, you've helped more sellers than you've helped buyers. Now, I get it. A lot of the sellers are buyers also. But serving so many home sellers, is that sort of like by accident or is that sort of on purpose for your business model?
Oh, that's a great question. So I love working with sellers. It's kind of my thing. My whole YouTube channel is seller focused. I don't talk much to buyers. And part of the reason is because seller agents, listing agents, and buyer's agents, I feel have somewhat different personalities a little bit. And so as a listing agent, I'm very upfront. I'm very to the point. I'm not super fluffy and, flowery when I'm showing homes. When you're showing homes, you really want to be with an agent who takes time, takes attention, shows you around, and is patient. And that's not really me. I'm showing them a home and I'm like, okay, this is a toilet. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, it's, so I don't really get, it doesn't give me passion as much to work with buyers. I find a real passion working with the sellers. So I have specifically focused my business on listings, mainly.
Now, you and I met because I discovered your YouTube channel. And by the way, everybody, Katie's links are in the show notes. I highly recommend that you check out her YouTube channel and subscribe. And hey, if you're listening, you're going there because of what you're hearing here on Sachs Realty Podcast, say hello and let Katie know that you came from Sachs Realty.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I played a video clip on my channel that you had posted where you were interviewing, I think it was a husband and wife, could have just been a couple, but that they were interested in having you sell their home and they were bold enough to come on. It was a brilliant conversation as it exposed just how sometimes clueless, and I mean that in a positive way, but how clueless home sellers can be and how unrealistic on the price they feel that their house is worth. I mean, you've had it happen. I've had somebody tell me their house is worth more because they have nicer carpet than the one that sold down the street. But I tagged you and you reached out to me to formally introduce yourself, and presto, here we are together.
Yeah. I was a little nervous. Somebody said, "Oh, Katie, your video's here." And I'm like, "Oh no, what is it gonna say?" But you were kind. You're kind enough, I would say. So that made me feel okay. But yes.
I loved what you're doing, and then I dove into some other of your other content, and I mean, I'd like to work with you, so I'll tell you that, and it is frustrating sometimes dealing with agents that don't know what they're doing, but as a professional listing agent working with sellers, I want to talk about what's the number one thing. And by the way, guys, Katie has no idea what I'm asking her here today.
Okay, go ahead.
We're putting her on the spot.
I know. I go for it.
I think you're up for the job.
Okay.
What's the number one thing a home seller hopes that a buyer during the home buying process doesn't ask? Doesn't
ask.
discover? What's the number one thing you found a seller, and maybe even as the listing agent, where you're like, wow, I hope the buyer doesn't go there?
Well, but maybe it's doesn't ask or doesn't know, maybe, is that the home seller is hoping that the buyer doesn't know the list price or the sales price that the seller's agent has probably said it's going to sell for. That's probably what they would not want shared, like an honest conversation by the selling agent with the sellers. Okay, we can try it at this price, but you're most likely going to get this price. So I would say the sellers don't want the buyers to know what that price, that they know what that price is. They're hoping to trick the buyers into believing their price is what they want. Does that make sense?
It does. So taking that one step further, what type of questions could a buyer ask you as the listing agent that, though you're not really to say, but what's a creative way that they could have a conversation with you to get that information from you?
Yeah. So usually, like if a house is overpriced, I will, and if I'm with a buyer, I will usually go to the agent and say, I'm just trying to pull some comps for my client. What are the comps that you've used? And I'm very nice and kind about it, just saying, listen, I mean, we know we're going to have to appraise out. We know we're going to have to get that appraisal to come in at your number. I just need to show my clients that your home is worth as much as you say it is. And if the buyer's agent's coming in a very kind, calm way, not just like, come on, give me a break. What comps did you use? It's a different conversation. So that relationship between the buyer's agent to do that with the listing agent is important. And if the listing agent does not come back with any comps, there's probably a good chance that home won't appraise. Like that's a big deal if that listing agent can't give you those comps to help it appraise. So then you're into your next conversation of what the home is actually worth.
That's a good point. And I have had that conversation with listing agents before, and they'll give me comparable sales that are over a year old.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And, I know, when I'm teaching on my channel, I'm really teaching sellers how to do this so that they're prepared when they go to sell, when they get an agent. And so I'm teaching an appraised value and a market value. So those are two different numbers. Your appraised value is what's on paper. The market value is what the market is doing at that time. So right now, considering most of the homes across the country are kind of going downward, the market value of many, many of the homes are lower than the appraised value. So that's what I'm talking about. And so when I'm sharing that as well, I might say as a listing agent, I might say to a buyer's agent, well, listen, market value on this is higher right now, and we know that, and I think there's a good chance we're going to appraise. So it's a dance you have to do, but that conversation about the price is super important.
So where can the buyers get the most leverage during the home buying transaction?
It's another good question. So the first thing is if they have a good buyer's agent, that sets the stage for how difficult the buyers are going to be. Um, I had a listing that went south pretty quick, and it was because the buyer's agent did not kind of control her buyers. And the buyers were very, very difficult. And by the time we got to the negotiations, my seller said, forget it. They've been difficult. They asked for a lot of things before they even wrote the contract. They spent hours in the home. They wrote the contract. We did get it to contract. And then at the inspection, it was supposed to be an as is. And they asked for a credit. And my seller said, forget it. We are done. And it's not always about the money. Like, it's not always, well, we gave them a great offer. It's about the stress level. The viewers on my channel are mainly over 55. And so a lot of them, this is where they've raised their families. This is not their investment necessarily. So they want an easy process, and they want to maximize their dollars. And I've seen many, many people who will tell the buyers just to go away because they're so difficult, because they think they've got the upper hand. And many sellers don't care. They just don't care. They don't care about that. They're willing to take less money. So I don't know if I answered your question, but the buyers really need to come in as a partnership, recognizing that many of these sellers, this is their lifelong family home, and they don't have to deal with it. They don't necessarily need the money. They may want the money, but they're like, we want a better life, and we want somebody who loves this house.
And what kind of role does the listing agent, a good listing agent, how much weight are they putting into the relationship and understanding that the buyer, and I get what you're saying. A buyer can be very abrasive. And one of the things that you don't want to do, that dance that you're talking about, the buyer obviously wants to get, they want to feel like they've gotten a good deal, or that they've had some wins, right?
Wins,
Unlike the last several years prior to the slowdown, where they had no leverage at all. They had to give everything away, and sellers didn't have to fix anything. But how important is conveying the softer side of the transaction? You may want to be hard on your offer or your price. You may want to be low. But what are some of the ways that the buyer can emphasize? And is it important for that listing agent to feel that sort of the want? Like, hey, look, maybe we want a better price, but this is why, and this is kind of like our situation, because it is hard to get that in sometimes when you're going through agents. But how important is it for the listing agent to understand that softer side of the buyers really loving the place, really wanting to be there, raise a family, maybe have the dog in the backyard, as far as the listing agent then being more sort of persuasive to their seller to take that deal?
It's important for some people. For people who it's a business transaction, it doesn't matter. For people who have maybe been in their home a long time, I have a seller that had a neighbor's child want their house. And that meant something to them. It also meant something to me that these people were not going to back out because there was very low inventory. But they did ask for large credit. And my sellers were willing to do it because they knew that these people wanted the home. They just knew that they did. So being able to convey that, for me, the worst thing is when we fall out of contract after we've gone onto contract. And so many sellers, that's what their main focus is. Okay, we will take this offer, but we do not want to be held, hostage. We want this to go through. And sometimes, I will tell my sellers, sometimes these buyers are super difficult. Like, I'm telling you right now, I think they're going to back out, or they're going to ask you for a lot. And my sellers will say, we just don't want to deal with that. So I think it's taking that. The market is going down. We know that. But I think the buyers need to not come in thinking that it's all about the money. It's about the dance. It's about the wooing of these sellers who love their homes. And I will tell you, they want somebody in that home who will connect with their neighbors. Like, that's a big deal for many sellers to say, you know what, I don't want to sell my home to these people who are such jerks. That does actually happen.
I think you bring up a good point because a lot
Mhm.
of people think it is just about the money, and there are many other reasons. Now, a listing agent, I mean, there's a couple things I wanted that sort of take me in this direction, because a lot of agents will put into the MLS, and I don't know, I think you serve a couple states, but you're based in Illinois, correct? Is
Yeah,
that
so
the
I have a team on the North Shore of Chicago, and I also sell in St. Augustine, Florida, where I live full
okay?
time.
So you're in
Mm,
Florida.
yeah,
I guess the question is, it's called a love letter, right?
yeah.
And a lot of agents will put in the MLS, no love letters. We're not going to take your love letter. And I've had plenty of buyers that have written a love letter, and a lot of agents think it's illegal, and it's not. They actually,
Uh-huh.
they were trying to make it illegal. They were saying that it could violate fair housing, and in fact, in the buyer agency agreements here in Maryland, it says that in the buyer agency agreement that the buyer will not write a love letter. And,
Really?
I like to scratch that out and just say, you know what, we're not playing that. If a buyer wants to say, you know what, I really love your house. I could tell it was a great place that you have enjoyed for 25 years, and we're hoping to do the same thing. Obviously you're going to tell them, look, don't go down the picture route and things like that, because I mean, you don't want to put the situation where it could fall into a fair housing violation. But how important, I mean, do you believe that if a buyer wants to write a letter to the seller that they should be able to do that, or that they in fact should, and that it would be something that you would present?
Yeah, I don't think it can hurt. I mean, I've never thought that they should be illegal. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. I do think that they can sway an argument, not when it comes to like $5,000 necessarily, not if it's a larger money gap. But if they're all things being equal, yeah, that's a really big deal for people to feel like, we want somebody good in here. Now, the other thing I say is to the sellers, which by the way, the sellers and buyers should never meet before before closing. But I say, listen, ultimately, after closing, you're going to get your packages delivered to your house and you're going to want them to give you your packages. So I just want you to think about how you handle this in the future. So, I think that I personally think they're good. I like them. If my buyers want to do them, go for it. If my sellers like them, that's great too. Um, it's not a make or break, but it definitely is an energy. It's good feeling energy.
How do you deal with the agent that tells their buyer, or the listing agent that says that I won't present a love letter?
What? Well, the agents that deal with me know that that wouldn't fly. So, in Illinois, people are doing it still, uh, so I would say, well, you have to because the buyers want this done, and this is our presentation of our offer. So I would get it done personally. I'd say it just has to be done. That's the way it is. Because it's not illegal. I have never really had this conversation with anybody, so I don't know if I'm out there on this or not. But
You're not. It's not illegal. I mean, we have passed it through. Believe me. I mean, we have, we have a real estate attorney who's probably, arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the state of Maryland. He used to be the lawyer for the Maryland Realtor Association. They were their counsel before they brought it in house. And we pass all of these things through, and he's even said, absolutely not. It's not illegal. They tried it. It was kicked out, and and buyers should be entitled to it. And you said something that I want to kind of backtrack on too.
mm,
I agree with you that in probably 99% of the cases that buyers and sellers shouldn't meet, but I have been in that situation where it's the only way to get the deal done, and where you just sit them down together and say, look, they want your house, you want to sell the house, and let's get this thing done. So, but I do agree it's a very small percentage. But we can't control them. So there is nothing that says that the buyer won't go knock on the door at 6 o'clock in the evening and say, look, did
yep.
your agent tell you this, or did your, so,
I've had that happen twice in the last month where
okay.
the buyers reached out directly to my sellers. And the agents are mortified. Like the buyer's agents have been mortified. And I am so sorry I didn't give them that information. And I don't have to say much other than, listen, if we want to get this deal done, they cannot be talking. Like it's just not a good idea. And at some point, yes, but it's very rare, very, very rare.
I had a situation, a big agent locally here, probably one of the biggest in the country as far as stats, but they're in Maryland. And I was at one of their listings. I was showing the house on Mother's Day when I used to do more production, and I was actually showing it to one of my best friends and his wife. And when I pulled into the driveway to show, the sellers came out and they said, can we ask you a couple questions?
No.
I'm like, oh, well, I mean, like, they're like, is it normal for this or that or whatever? I'm like, look, I can't answer those questions for you. You're going to have to call your agent. But, sometimes these things, it happens on both sides where they
Right.
feel that the agent has failed them in some way and they want to just talk.
Yeah, I
Uh,
see that all the time. Definitely. It's sad. I hate it.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I just wanted to take a brief minute and share some exciting news. I have just released my new Todd Simple home buying course. This course is designed for anyone wanting to know how to buy a home. It's designed to take you through the entire home buying process from start to finish. You'll learn how to represent yourself should you want to avoid paying real estate commissions, the best ways to shop for a home, how to avoid costly mistakes, what to look for when touring a home, negotiation tactics, and so much more. In this home buying course, I hold nothing back. In fact, I would go to say that no one has uncovered the home buying process like I have. I've even made a way for you to gift this course to your family and friends. Visit saxrealty.education. The link is also pinned in the comments below. Now back to the show. I mean, look, it's no surprise now that, and I've never recommended, by the way, that I think that a buyer should buy a house without an agent. I've never recommended that that's a good idea. What I have recommended is I've said plenty of times on my show, and I have a course that I wrote, my Todd Simple Homebuyer course, that teaches them how to do it and how to buy without an agent. But there are, there are people that are competent enough to do it themselves, and there's people that are not. They're too emotional and they should have a good buyer's agent. But what I've said is if you're going to hire a bad agent, you may be better off just not having one.
Right.
And, do you agree with that?
I do. I do. I think that, there are people who are definitely capable of doing it themselves. The issue I see from a listing agent side is I do not want to necessarily, I hate to say help that person. I do want to help that person, but I'm obligated to my seller.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can do dual agency in Maryland. In
No.
Illinois, okay, in Illinois you can. And so then it gets tricky. Are you a dual agent? Are you transactional? What are you doing? And it doesn't matter. Somebody's always upset. It doesn't matter. And the standards that agents have to have in order to be self-accountable, that they are not disclosing information, is so high. There's so few agents, I think, that are able to really clearly draw those lines, and either the buyer or the seller is going to get upset. So yes, buyers can do it. We did it on a transaction this past summer. The buyers came to us. They were very well understood. They had run their comps. They did everything. They basically just needed the contract written up and they were going to sign it, and they had their attorney. It went very, very well. And I was totally fine with that. And we built a nice relationship with them. It's when the buyers are doing it because they're trying to save money, where then they think that, well, the seller wants us to do this because the seller is going to save money. And again, the sellers don't always, it's not always about the money, because if I bring a buyer who's not represented to my seller's going to say, okay, well, do you know them? What's their story? Like, I know nothing about them. And at least when you're working with an agent, they know I've shown them 20 homes, we've written 2 offers that didn't go through, or whatever it is. You get some background, not just some random person off the street. And so it's when the buyers get really abrasive in that moment where it just doesn't go well. And the sellers don't like that either. This is emotional for the sellers. And it's not always transactional. And so the buyers need to think about how are they presenting themselves. Again, it's not always about the money.
No, I Completely agree with that. I do think that there are creative ways that they can save money now, especially with the new ruling, because a lot of sellers aren't offering buyer agent compensation.
Sure.
And we're starting to see now where there's like this, kind of like game that's being played with listing agents because they don't understand the new rule, or because, if you sign a listing agreement with a seller, in that agreement, it is saying that you authorize your listing agent to cooperate or you don't. And if you do authorize your agent to cooperate, there should be a figure or a percentage of cooperation
Correct.
to a buyer agent broker. And these agents want to play games with it. I'll call them up and I'll say, "Hey, the way I do it is I say, hey, my buyer's interested in looking at the house. We've made an appointment. However, they also would like to know if there's any buyer agent compensation by your brokerage, by you, from you, per your listing agreement. And if so, how much is it?" And they want to play that game where they're like, "Well, just ask for it." Yeah, there is, but just ask for it. It's like, no, 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 no. No, this isn't a game. Look at your contract, your listing agreement, and
Mhm.
tell me what it is. This isn't a game, right?
So that's not actually in my agreements. It can be. We have a choice in our agreements with EXP, and there are some other brokerages that do that as well. I think the key is making sure everybody understands exactly if there is a payout, if there's not a payout. What if a buyer comes unrepresented, or is it a dual agency? So I definitely think that's super important to understand for the sellers for sure. And then it's going to be very clear when the buyer's agents are talking to the listing agents.
Yeah, I 100% agree
Yeah.
again with what you're saying here. And I wish, I kind of feel like since the DOJ was involved in this whole thing, I kind of feel like not being able to put it on the MLS is kind of setting the buyers up, actually, and well, the sellers too, because at least when we could see where it is, and I get it, they didn't want people to steer them because commissions are always negotiable, and they didn't want the buyer's agent to sort of steer them to where they could make more money. This house is terrible because they're making less money. This house is great because they are. But I feel like the way that they handled it just makes it honestly less transparent for the
Yes.
buyers and sellers, which are
Yes.
the two most important elements in the deal.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think that, and what I'm finding is that agents, I think, are actually making more money right now.
I agree. I
You
because of
know?
this, because
Yeah,
of this, yes.
I know. It's crazy.
And look, and I think everybody should make money in the work that they do. And if you're really super, I mean, obviously, like I'd said, and I'm not just, believe me, if you watch my show, I'm not, I mean, I'm pretty, I call it like I see it. But when you look at your numbers, I mean, clearly you're not a bad actor out there. You wouldn't have
Mhm.
the numbers that you have. And dealing with professionals, that's what people need to find when they're buying and selling a house. They need to find the pros that are doing
Absolutely.
this, full time and know what the heck they're doing that can, you know, uh, make it happen. How important, Katie, how important is an agent's financial well being? How important is it to determine that agent's financial well being? And I'm going to really, we're talking about focusing on a buyer. How important is it to know their agent, before they hire, their financial well-being, so that they can put the actual home buyer ahead of their own commission check?
So that is super interesting. I did not know you would go that direction, but yeah. So I always say an agent that's willing to put your profits over their paycheck is the agent you should hire. Like that is exactly who you should hire. An agent who is super honest with you about that. Now, as far as their financial stability, I think is what you're asking me, right? Are they
Well, just
financially
to
stable as well?
identify, well, let's face it, if they're having a hard time paying their bills, human nature in a lot of ways is like, I mean, how many agents spend their commission check before it even goes to close? They're like, "Wait a minute, it can't fall apart. I've already spent this money."
Exactly. And so that's what I'm saying is that the really successful agents are not willing to work with people who are uh, maybe not going to buy or put themselves in a position that makes them really difficult. They're willing to walk away from their commission. And any agent who is broke is going to try and get you to buy anything that they can. And there are a lot of broke agents in this industry. So the idea is that you need to find an agent that is financially stable, meaning they do enough business where they can pay their bills, not that they're like, I have got to get this closing. Otherwise, I can't pay my mortgage. And that happens. I mean, we know it. We've seen it. That happens a lot in our industry, which is why so many people leave the industry. So definitely, definitely, you got to make sure that your agent is financially stable themselves. Otherwise, they might be pushing you into something just to get that commission check.
How can a buyer spot them out? What are some of
Mm.
the ways, some of the questions maybe that they could ask?
I would ask about their own purchasing, their own home buying experience, their things like that. Tell me what it was like when you bought your house. Oh, maybe I don't own, or oh, we had to sell, or, sometimes you get information from people and you're like, why are these agents saying all this? And it's not the agents necessarily that are driving the flashy cars or things like that. It's the agents who look stable. They've got consistent marketing. They are spending their expenses consistently. And they just seem really, really well put together because so many agents are flashy and people believe that you go with the flashy agent because obviously they're successful. Well, a lot of that is a lot of flash. And you really have to dig down to understand how many homes that they've sold. I think an agent who sold 20 to 30 homes in the previous year is a stable agent. And it depends on the price point, of course. But that's where I would feel like they're not part-time. They're making a living selling real estate.
Do you feel that most home buyers do a good job of vetting their agents?
That is a setup question because we
That
know they
was a
don't.
setup question.
Like, we all know that nobody does a good job of finding their buyer's agents. Now, if it's a listing agent and a buyer's agent who's working on your house, that's different. But if you're just headed out to find a buyer's agent, here's what you got to look for is that they're actually selling real estate, not that they're too busy. You don't want somebody that's too busy, and you want somebody that has the time to show you around because buyers are difficult. And the reason buyers are difficult is because you have to go at a moment's notice. Might be a weekend, it might be a night, and there could be many, many, many hours. So that buyer's agent needs to have that personality to be able to do that. So when you're talking to a buyer's agent, you really need to dig in deep with these questions. How many homes have you sold? Are you more listing heavy or more buyer heavy? So if somebody were to say to me, oh, I want to go buy a home, I know there's some that I'm just going to say, it's not a fit because I don't enjoy that as much. But the buyers should be able to tell that by talking to me, that it's just not a fit because I'm so listing heavy. So then that's a question. Well, why are you so listing heavy? What's that about? Are you going to be able to service me on the buy? What if you can't show me the home? What if you go on vacation? Do you have a teammate who's going to show it to me? Things like that. Definitely, I think it's important to interview your buyer's agent. No question.
So, how much weight should they put into or value um, their mom's best friend, who's an agent, or their college roommate?
Okay, so I did a whole video on this, about not using your friend as a real estate agent. You can use your agent who's your friend, but not your friend who's an agent. Is that what I want to say? Yeah. So, you have to be very, very careful. And I had a seller reach out to me about a month ago, and she wrote me this long email. And she said, choosing my friend as my agent is literally the very worst mistake I've ever made in my whole life. She said, I have been devastated for the past 2 months. We can't get this sold. She's ghosted me. And so that is you really have to know it's okay to work with a friend. Now, agents, like, you know, agents, my friends who see me as an agent, I don't talk about all the homes that I'm selling. I don't talk about my, YouTube or my Instagram all the time to all my friends. That's what I do for a living. So I don't need to. Agents who don't have a lot going on are going to talk about all the work they're doing. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm showing all these homes, things like that. So the other thing that I said in that video is that if you are thinking about using your friend as an agent, you go to your friend and you say, listen, I am thinking about using you, but I would like to talk to other agents and interview them. If your friend is a great agent, he or she is going to say, yep, I think you should. Like that, I think is the key, is a great agent knows that that friend should be interviewing other people. And I like it when people interview other people because I like to hear what other agents' prices are. So I would say, yeah, go ahead. I know I'm the best agent for you, but I want you to know that I'm the best agent for you. So that, I mean, using a friend as an agent, you have to be so careful if that's the route you're going to go.
So, what advice do you have to the home buyer when they decide not to use their best friend or their mom's best friend?
Yeah.
What advice do you have? What's the best way for them to let that out of the bag? Like, hey, I decided I wasn't going to use you. What should they
It's
say?
It's really hard. Like, and this is the problem because newer agents are going to make you feel bad. And the agents who don't have a lot of work, the agents who are broke, the agents who you might be a family member with and you just got your license, they're the ones who don't understand the significance of listing and buying homes. Like, I know agents can cost their clients tens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars because of their advice. I mean, as a listing agent, I've seen these buyers agents come in. I'm like, well, that was a big mistake. They just got my seller, an additional $10,000. So it's so, so important that they are, you know, being honest with their friend. Okay. So if somebody says that to me, I'm like, I've been rejected thousands of times. I've lost a lot of deals. I understand it's not a fit. So what you have to do is take any emotion off the table, and you can't give uh, a real excuse. You can't say, well, it's because you haven't sold enough homes. And they're going to say, but I can't. I promise I can partner up with somebody. Like all you just say is, it's just not a fit. It's just not a fit. I'm really sorry. It's just not a fit because that's not something that they can counter. And once you start trying to give them actual reasons, they're going to come back and they're going to try and convince you. And then it's just going to get a battle. So you just say, it's just not a fit.
Yeah,
Just not a fit.
that's perfect.
Mhm.
I have a little story to share. So I have a friend that's out of state that bought a house from an agent that he received as a referral from another friend of his. And so he was relocating to this state and for work and was horrible. The buyer's agent, I mean, it was absolutely terrible, horrible advice, very frustrating throughout the whole thing. And probably fell into that category that he overpaid and the agent had commission breath, so I hear. But the agent has done everything to continue to stay in touch with him because it's, maybe she buys into that calls notes and Popeyes,
Right.
program where, hey, I'm going to drop off,
Right.
mustard and ketchup and relish because I relish your relationship at the 4th of July and different
Right.
things. So she's constantly showering him with these little gifts and stuff. Well, his job is relocating him back. And he put his house on the market. And of course, she saw that he was selling the house and she instantly reached out and was like, I can't believe that you listed
Right.
this house and you didn't call me. And I've been so like following you up with you and doing everything. And I helped you get this house. And so he didn't know what to say. And he said, well, he said, it's part of the relocation service at
Yeah.
work that I had to use one of the agents on the list. And she said, I'm on that list. So, he was kind of like,
He was
oops.
stuck.
He was, but anyway, but it is important to look, if you're an agent listening to this show, look, you're not guaranteed anything. I mean, you have
No.
to, you can't just drop off mustard, ketchup, and relish at somebody's front door and do that 4 or 5 times a year or whatever and expect that someone is going to use you again. You have to do a good job and not let your buyers and sellers down.
And that's one thing that really bothers me about this industry is that agents, newer agents or part-timers believe that they are owed the business by their friends and family. And that really makes me upset to watch these buyers and sellers being taken advantage of by agents who make them feel terrible. I mean, this is, tens of thousands of dollars. This is, I mean, you can't just let anybody do it because you feel bad about that. And the agents who are selling more homes finally get that. And they're like, ooh, maybe in the beginning I was a little upset, but now I understand. Now it's like, moving on.
Well, that's
We're
what
going to
they
get
teach
rejected.
you when you get your
Right.
license.
Right.
Pounds your family, pounds your
Family.
friends, stay on them, and you want to be, um, I talk about something very sensitive in many of my podcasts when it comes to hiring an agent. And if you have bought homes before, you're on your third house or whatever. I mean, you probably have a good understanding of what you're doing, and you've learned by the mistakes through the prior purchases and the ways that you've made out. And but when you're a first time buyer, you're especially vulnerable because you're emotional. You've been told you're throwing your money away. Probably you've been told that maybe even by your parents or your friends or certainly your realtor friend that you went to college with, that you're throwing your money away renting and you can afford to buy a house. And there's so much emotion that's involved. One of the things that I say is that you should be dealing with an agent, and you touched on this earlier, that owns a house themselves. And I
Mhm.
catch more grief in the comments where people are like, everybody has to start somewhere. You can't believe everybody's got their first day on the job. Yes, they do. And you belong on a team, in my opinion. Your first day on the job, you need a mentor. You need to be right in your broker or manager's office every single day, not out there winging it and like the Wild West, like more than anybody in the business. Which is, a lot of there's a lot of arrogance in this industry, maybe a lot of
Yes.
sales industries. But do you really believe that that's true too? I mean, if you're a first time buyer, do you believe that their agents should actually at least own a home or have owned a home for a period of time before they're helping some first time buyer buy one?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, yeah, unless it's, a really, really low priced area where the buyers, maybe experienced people aren't going to work with them. But overall, absolutely, the buyers agents need to understand. Now, I work with my daughter who's 24 and in Chicago, and of course, she does not own anything. So she does show my buyers homes, but we work hand in hand together. So we're on all the text messages. I'm doing the negotiating, the phone calls, everything. She's opening the doors and she's learning. So I would never give her, a 500 or $1 million buyer without that structure, and so having an agent who doesn't own a home and who is not working with a team lead or a mentor of some sort, I don't they can't do it. I hate to say that because I get people on my channel too who are like, "You always say you need to choose an experienced agent." And I'm like, "How are we supposed to get experience?" And I'm like, "You partner up. You pay your debts. You work your butt off with this, team leader who's willing to show you the ropes. And then you'll have 50 transactions under your belt." Because I always say, all the time, every single deal I do, to this day, I learn something new every single transaction. So you figure I've sold 600 homes. I've been rejected lots and lots of times, thousands of times. I've written thousands of contracts, right? On every single one of those contracts, I've learned something new. And just because they all haven't closed doesn't mean I haven't learned something. New agents have literally no idea. I hate to say that. I know. So we'll both get hate now. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I think you're helping somebody buy one of the largest purchases they'll ever make in their lifetime in general. And the other thing that goes along with that, if you look at any other trade, there's journeyman type of, apprenticeship programs.
Right.
I mean, there are all kinds of mentorship programs in professional trades that you have to do. I mean, you're right. It's such
Right.
a low barrier to entry, and an agent. If you're listening, it amazes me even on with my agents, and we're a small brokerage, but even with our agents, it's amazing how little sometimes even the agent will communicate with me, the broker manager, to just strategize the deal, just to look at the paperwork, make sure it's okay before you send it out there and frustrate a listing agent and then the sellers where they're saying, look, you didn't fill this out right. You didn't do this right. You didn't do, it's embarrassing for the brokerage. And, but then you find that most experienced agents will call all the time and say, hey, Todd, look at this. I had this deal. What do you think about it? What kind of angle should we go? Here's the deal with the buyers. How, I need another head to this thing. And great minds, you put the resource together and you can really work for your client. But it's amazing just how little that's done, unfortunately.
Yeah, I find the more experienced agents are more open and authentic and saying, I totally screwed that up before, so now I need some help to figure this out. And also the experienced agents are the ones who are going to say, you know what, that's a great question. I don't know. Let me go find out. And they're not afraid to go ask. It's the new agents that are afraid to ask the questions.
Yeah, they make it up.
And
it's wrong.
I know. I hate to talk about this, but it's true.
Let's talk about home inspection. Should buyers waive their right to a home inspection?
No. I mean, even when things were really, really crazy, I did not see that in the Chicagoland area. I saw a lot of as-is deals where they would do the inspection and then say they weren't going to ask for any requests. So I think that's fine. But waiving the inspection, I would not recommend that at all. I don't know. Does anybody recommend that? I don't know.
Well, no, but here in Maryland, if you were getting an inspection, you didn't buy a house, mid 2020, 21, 22, and the beginning of 23, it was like we didn't even have a winter. In that period of time when, there was helicopter money that was being dropped out, people were working from home. Everybody was, the investors were 30%, 35% of the buyers. They were competing. They were letting the sellers live in the house rent-free for as long as they needed. The investors were, and it was making it almost impossible for the buyers. So if an investor is coming in and saying, look, we don't need to inspect your house, we'll give you X amount of dollars cash. If you were competing with that, it was a horrible time here locally and in a lot of parts of the country. But I want to get back to something that you said, if they want to do an as-is inspection. I don't like that. In our contracts, we have an inspection addendum, and basically it gives a period of time for a buyer. And now we're seeing inspections on every deal, by the way, unless it's distressed and it's such a low price and investors buying it, they have the knowledge and the skill. If they've rehabbed a couple hundred houses, they know what they're walking into.
Exactly.
And they're pricing it that way. But I'm talking about, home buyers, first-time buyers, owner occupants. They're going to live in that house. So we are seeing that on every deal just about now that is owner occupied. They want an inspection, which I love. But we have an inspection addendum that now we sort of got rid of the as-is clause in Maryland because they said, you know what, the contract is as is. It is as is. It's just the way it's written. So, but the inspection addendum, they added two things in the addendum. One is a right to negotiate and one is a right to terminate. And when I'm representing buyers, at least personally, especially if they're first-time buyers, well, of course, I want the right to terminate. I want them to be able to walk away. But if I'm a listing agent, I want them to strike through that and get rid of that right to terminate because, like you said, the last thing I want is the seller to not have the ability to negotiate repairs and they walk and now I'm back to active again in this market, it's terrible for the seller.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. So our contracts are a little bit different, but I understand what you're saying. Are you an attorney state there? Do you use attorneys or title companies?
We do. The title company has to have an attorney review all the abstract and the deed, and yes.
Okay, so for the most part, Illinois, especially Northern Illinois, is an attorney state. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on with the attorneys. It just makes it a little more difficult. But that's interesting. We have just as is right to ask for requests and as is no requests. We don't have that terminate because during our attorney review period within 5 business days, they can cancel for any time. I don't know. So, and this is a conversation like, us having this conversation, knowing these contracts, do all the agents that people are talking to, do they understand the little tiny insignificant things that they may think are insignificant but are huge? So we don't, so as is without requests is probably what we're talking about a little bit more than,
It sounds like it. So
yeah.
let me ask you
Mhm.
this, because the contracts are between the buyer and the seller. I mean, that is, you can
Right.
take all of the third-party forms that you want and rip them up in the garbage can. And if they want to write their own contract to buy the house, we in Maryland have very few actual required documents. We're lead paint, um, you know, uh, uh, disclosure, pre-1978 houses. So that's a required form. The disclosure disclaimer is a required form where any latent defects or hidden items that a seller knows about, they have to disclose that. If you're a buyer listening, we're going in the weeds. I want to try and simplify this. But what I'm getting at here is even though you're an attorney state, when it comes to giving, they would like to have that 5-day ability to terminate. Can a seller request that is waived?
They try. They don't understand it at all, but in Illinois, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's just so heavy attorneys. You need an attorney to actually close, to run the title. So, I mean, in Northern Illinois, I know it's different in parts of Southern Illinois and Western Illinois, but uh,
So
could they do
would it
that?
be
They
legal?
can't.
Would it be legal for the seller to scratch through it and then the buyer not have that right to terminate? 5-day period?
I have not seen that. I'm sure they could if it was a tough negotiation and they really wanted it. During the crazy times, I did write a couple of offers with no inspections. By the way, we did not get those. But I did have one where we would go straight, here's 50,000 hard earnest money, no inspection, and we're going to go straight to pending, basically. And we didn't get it. So I've not seen that. I don't know if they could do that. I don't know if buyers would actually be okay with that. It's risky. It's very risky in Illinois.
Got
So,
it. Yeah, it would be risky for the buyer. The
yeah,
seller, yeah,
seller would
but
love it. Yeah.
yeah, the seller would love it. Do you believe that home buyers should take a home buying course before they buy a house? And with that, I'm going to plug my course because I have a course that I've been serving the housing market since 1989. I was a contractor, was a home builder, and I didn't get my real estate license till 2005. But at that time, I built a team, and then I started Sachs Realty in 2017. But do you feel that a home buyer should take a course to understand the process better, to not just understand the different aspects of narrowing down their choices, to identifying good and bad houses, to negotiation tactics, to hiring their agent? Do you feel that they should get this type of education before they make one of the largest purchases of their entire life?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was noticing that you did this course, this buying course, and I have a seller's course, but I'm not really promoting it right now. So I haven't seen this strong of a buyer's course out there. So I, of course, was super intrigued by it myself. I thought it was really interesting because the goal of my channel is to educate, right? Because I believe any seller, essentially buyers are there too, but anybody who is more educated is going to be able to navigate this market. And so the fact that you've put together a buyer class, I think is amazing. Like I love that because the more information you have as a buyer, the better it's going to be for you. The more money you are going to be able to save, the better your experience is going to be. It's going to be, where you feel very comfortable choosing your agent and making sure you've written the contract the right way and answering all those questions. Because like I said before, I've learned something new in every single deal. And so this type of course, I would imagine, is probably like going to give those buyers that education, which I personally love just based upon what I'm doing on the other side. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. Yeah, I'd love to see it too. for sure.
I tell you what, I think every real estate agent, I mean, I put my experience in there from contracting and building, and it would be a great, it's a lot of agents, at a glance, they may look at it and say, well, this guy's saying no buyer's agent. Well, no, if you dive into the course, I even say in the course, look, I don't recommend you doing this. I think you need to find a professional negotiator, a great realtor to help you. But again, like we originally said, if you're going to hire somebody that's horrible, and then you would be better off on your own. And I sort of walk them down through that course as well, because some people can handle it on their own. But as we kind of wrap up here, you've been serving the business, and by the way, it's an absolute honor to have you on the show.
Right back at you.
And I mean, this is great. I'm hoping that we can, have you back as a regular contributor. I think you're doing a wonderful job on your channel, and certainly commend you on that. What do you think the role? And I had about 6 months ago, may have been longer. We had somebody come in from, I think they lived in Australia, even. Or Hawaii, maybe it was Hawaii, but they flew in to Florida to visit their parents, and they came into our studio. And I had a friend, Brent Johnson, that we had interviewed several times on the channel. He's a financial advisor, and he called me up one day and he said, Todd, I'd like to bring somebody. I'd like for you to do me a personal favor and interview somebody that doesn't believe what you're saying. And I said, well, I mean, that's fine. I have people that don't believe in what I'm saying all the time. I mean, let's bring it on. So he flew in, and I was really offended. And because, and I tried not to be, but I couldn't help it, because he basically said, you're going out of business. He didn't tell me I was going out of business, but he basically said, AI is going to replace you, bud.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to,
really,
your industry's on its way out. And I tell you, I was so, I mean, it was like fire was coming out, I would just was, and then, it's kind of like those things that you tell the seller, look, you better take this offer. It's the best offer you're going to get. And if you're stupid, you're going to sit on the market for 18 more months. And, it was kind of like one of those moments where, I was like, this is very interesting. In a day when you could probably, through AI, find every contract and addendum in every state. If it's not on there yet, it probably will be. How do you think that AI is going to play a role in the overall overarching industry? Not necessarily. It may be like the Nordstroms, or the higher end financial advisors, or the really good travel agent, where the industry has been, their industries were disrupted because of technology. What do you think is going to happen to us?
That's interesting, because I just had this situation happen today with my daughter, who sent me this email, and she said, look at what this potential client wrote us. And it was the email from this client said, thank you so much for all this great information. And then I look at all the information that came, and it was signed by Anna. And I'm like, and it was like, we've changed, your search setup, and this is what you could do. Like all these, it was like a really long email. And I said to my daughter, I said, who's Anna? She's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's my AI bot on my CRM system. But so I think what it's going to do is it's going to make things more efficient. I really do. I think it will help a lot. Like, I'm using ChatGPT all the time for lots of different things, but it's making me more efficient. It's making me better. It's making me more educated. So I know that, like, my sellers are not going to feel comfortable trusting an AI bot when they're like, oh my gosh, do they like the house? What was the feedback? I mean, how do you feel about these buyers? Do you think they really want this? Like, that cannot be replaced. The hand-holding cannot be replaced. The specific negotiating can't be replaced, but it can make us better in the industry. I do believe it can. Again, I haven't really had this conversation with much. And I have to say, all your questions have been very good, because I did not know any of these questions that you were going to share. Put me on the spot there. So I haven't really talked about that with anybody either. I think it'll make us feel more efficient. What about you?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I think we're going to see some very interesting times ahead of us. And I think that the big question is, who will be that tech company that will marry a buyer and seller together and be the one to facilitate it? Now, I don't necessarily, you would probably still need a license. I know you need a license in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, to sell real estate. I always wondered how these wholesalers could do it without a real estate license. And bills have been passed here in Maryland, or not passed, but presented to put into effect that anyone selling a contract, it's still the real estate behind it. You can't it's like a loophole, but the wholesalers are doing it every day. I think a lot of the inventory is being hidden from the MLS. You've got subject to, where people are, taking their deeds, having the deeds signed over. You have people that are teaching investors how to do this. I think that is extracted. I think a lot of what we're seeing with a lack of inventory is not just coming from the fact that that there's not enough houses. I think what's happening is it's being kept from the MLS because it's happening off market. We've done several off market deals that never hit the MLS because, the sellers already had a buyer in mind, or, they just wanted a quick sale. But I'm waiting for this technology phase. And that's why I think it's very important what we're doing, because our education, regardless of whether you're using AI, you need to be educated on how to buy and sell a house, whether you're going to do it on your own or use an agent to do it. But I don't know yet. I mean, I'm still going back to that original conversation that I'm unsure of the power of these tech companies. And I could see where somebody could actually have licensees in every state, but do something for a lot less and cover all of those bases. Hey, there's probably a lot of attorneys that would like to pick up a couple extra bucks
and
have agents, cut out of the deal. So I don't know.
Well, we'll have to come back and talk about that next year.
We will.
See where we're at, because it's changing every day.
Yeah, we'll follow it up. Katie, again, absolute honor to have you on the show. I thank you so much. Everybody, check out Katie's YouTube channel. It's in the show notes below. So all you do is hit the little more, and you'll find her and send her some love. Tell her you came from Sachs Realty. Any parting words?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the education that you're providing as well. I think it's important, and I'm so honored that you asked me to come on. Definitely. So we'll keep in touch.
We'll do it again.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, you can let us know by smashing that thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please consider doing so now. Hit that alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content just like this. Keep those comments and questions coming. And one of the biggest compliments you can do for us all here at Sachs Realty is to share our channel and this video with your family and friends. This will help us to continue to build this amazing online community with viewers just like yourself. See you next time. Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.